So, what if one nation could unlock a brand new science of the human mind? A science that would let it perfect its own society and then lead the entire world. Today, we're diving into a really speculative theory that imagines exactly that, putting the US and China right at the heart of this wild vision for where humanity is headed.
Right off the bat, the theory we're exploring today really doesn't beat around the bush. The title itself makes this incredibly bold claim. The United States, triumphant over China, will lead humanity out of its childhood. So this sets up a story that's not just about winning some geopolitical contest, but about a massive evolution for our whole species. Let's dig into the problem this theory says it can solve.
Okay, so what's the big problem that this whole theory is built on? Well, the author argues that humanity is stuck in this kind of dangerous childhood phase, and we're facing a massive threat to our very existence.
And we're not talking about some far-off, distant threat here. The entire theory is built on this really urgent belief that we are, right now, on the verge of self-destruction. It's this super high-stakes idea that, according to the author, means we need a totally new way of thinking.
So, if humanity is standing on the brink, what's the big solution? The author gives it a name, this new science, and it's presented as the key to unlocking our species' real potential.
Now, when you hear new science, you might be thinking about AI or some new tech, right? But nope, that's not it at all. This is a social philosophy. The whole idea is to rebuild society from the ground up, based on human physiological indicators with one single metric at the very center of it all, the human thinking function.
So what in the world is this thinking function? Well, the theory breaks it down into three key parts. You've got your function of belief, or faith. Then there's the function of mission, your purpose. And finally, the function of logic. The whole argument is that for a society to be truly healthy, its people have to be healthy in all three of these areas.
And here's the crucial part. It's not just about you or me working on this stuff ourselves. The theory says that our entire social structure, government, schools, even our jobs, all of it needs to be redesigned with one main goal, making sure that everyone's thinking function is always improving, always maturing, and always getting stronger.
And this is where we go from this kind of abstract theory to a really specific and pretty provocative idea. The author takes this whole concept and applies it to one country to see what might happen if it became the first to actually do all this. And that country? The United States.
This is it. This is the big what-if question that the rest of the theory completely hinges on. Everything that follows is based on this one idea. What happens if the United States is the very first nation on Earth to fully embrace and implement the principles of this new science?
And the predicted result is, well, it's monumental. According to this source, that one decision would kick off a totally new era in human history. It would position the US not just as another superpower, but as the one and only guide for humanity's future. But before it can lead the world, the theory says the US would have to totally transform itself first. So let's take a look at the specific, almost utopian changes the author predicts would happen inside the country.
First up, a complete revolution in how we're governed. The source basically says that right now, politics is run on false knowledge and pseudoscience. But in this new world, leaders would have what the author calls a true social science, this deep, fundamental understanding of how to perfect the human mind. And get this, the text says this new level of expertise would literally strike fear into the hearts of leaders from other countries.
Okay, next up is a prediction that's, well, it's pretty startling. The author claims that once society is re-engineered to perfect everyone's thinking function, things will become so harmonious that the national crime rate will drop all the way down to 0. Yeah, not just reduced, but completely gone.
Even the whole reason we have a job would get a complete makeover. Work wouldn't be about making money anymore. Instead, people would joyfully engage in employment because it's a way to participate in society, to stay healthy, and, you guessed it, it's another way to nurture and improve their own thinking function.
So, let's say America has done it. It's perfected itself on the inside. What happens next? How would it actually lead the rest of the world? Well, the theory lays out a very clear, top-down kind of plan.
The plan for global leadership is pretty straightforward. First, the US establishes the new norms. Then, it creates the indicators to measure every other nation against those norms. From there, it moves on to mandating that other countries fix themselves. And finally, it guides all nations into this new way of being.
One of the key tools for this whole global plan would be something called the essential indicators for human society. You can basically think of these as a universal report card for every country, measuring how well their society is doing at improving that all-important thinking function in their people.
And the source is super direct about the kind of power this would give the U.S. We're not talking about friendly suggestions. According to this theory, the U.S. would have the authority to demand changes in what it calls failed states, to directly step in and guide anti-human states, and even to set hard deadlines for these other nations to get in line.
And so, after laying out this massive, almost unbelievable vision, the author leaves us with a really important question. We've heard the what, a perfected American society leading the world, but the theory itself makes us think about the how. I mean, what would a real-world day one plan for implementing a new science of the human mind actually look like? That gap between this grand idea and our messy reality might just be the biggest question of all.